"So you are a king," Pilate said. On this episode of 10-Minute Bible Study, wherein we are studying the Gospel of John in 10-minute, easily digestible bites 5 times a week, Pilate had asked Jesus if he were a king, and Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." So Pilate says, "So you are a king." It's difficult to know exactly the tone of voice that Pilate had when he said this. The original Greek doesn't have any punctuation or capitalization. So one has to figure out the tone of it. Was it an aha moment where Pilate said, "So you are a king. Aha! I've got you now." But that doesn't seem plausible. It doesn't seem like Pilate wants a gotcha moment. He's already formed an opinion that Jesus is forming an opinion, actually, that Jesus was innocent. More than likely, he said this ironically, that is, meaning the opposite of what he said. Something like, "Oh, okay, so you are a king then." He saw Jesus as perhaps a little deluded, maybe, but harmless. This seems to fit best when you can put it next to what Jesus said next. John 18:37. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." So Pilate, being ironical as he was, Jesus now seeks to cut through that. And it makes it clear that he was actually born to be a king, that he had come into the world to be the king bringing truth to the world. But you look at the points that Jesus makes. Being a king is his purpose. He was born to be a king. He came into the world to be a king. God had worked through all of history to bring this about. Started with the calling of Abraham, who obediently followed. He blessed him, built up the nation of Abraham. Israel's first real king, David, would be promised that he would have a never-ending kingdom and that one of his own descendants would sit on that throne. Through the prophets of Israel, God kept telling how this king was coming, this Messiah was coming. Now, Pilate doesn't know all this, but we know this. And so Jesus is speaking truth that Pilate had not heard before. And then the word that Jesus uses, truth. He was come to bear witness to the truth. And anyone who is of the truth listens to him. Now, that's a pretty audacious thing that Jesus said. Anyone who listens to the truth or is of the truth listens to me. Now, the word truth is a big deal in John's gospel. It keeps appearing again and again. If you really want to understand the meaning of how he uses the word truth, it's good to see how he used it in the rest of his gospel. So let's just do that briefly. First chapter of John tells us that grace and truth came through Christ Jesus. In the 8th chapter of John, he, talking to a group of would-be disciples, Jesus says, "If you remain in my word, you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." In John 14, Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus is the embodiment of truth. And now he says, rather exclusively, that anyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. Truth, therefore, is God's reality, a reality to which Christ ushers us into by the forgiveness of our sin. Jesus restores us to the reality of God, which is truth. He calls us out of darkness into his most wonderful light. And if we listen to his voice, we will become truthful. This was to counter what the father of lies did. The whole world is now captivated by lies. And so God was going to remedy that by sending the embodiment of truth into the world. Pilate responds to Jesus. What is truth? As a society, we are now at the nth stage of cultural relativism. That is the understanding that the truth is relative. It's closely related to Einstein's theory of relativity, wherein Einstein asserted that time is relative to the position of the observer. Now, some people took that and applied that to human life and said morals are relative according to the position of the observer. And it goes on and on. That's how they keep doing it. So people now feel free to say, well, I have my version of the truth, and you have your version of the truth, and we're both okay with that. And that's how people can also say, well, you believe that your God is real. I believe, even though the gods are very different, we're supposed to accept that both people are right. That is cultural relativity. There is no absolute, no truth. Our culture is so deep in a deep tailspin because of this right now. We can no longer agree on what is true and what is not true, what is good and what is bad, and so on and so on. And you talk to the people of this generation, and sometimes you feel as if you're visiting another planet. And, of course, I see the devil in all of this. He loves it that we are confused about what is true and what is not. That is what makes us miserable. And as long as we're miserable, Satan is happy. Now, a lot of people imagine that Pilate, when he asked what is truth, that he was showing our modern cultural relativism. No, he wasn't. We can't say that. We would be wrong to impose the 20th and 21st century thought on Pilate. That's not what he was thinking. He wasn't like one of our people, how do we know the truth? Well, no, he was more, he offered this, what is truth, out of frustration and cynicism, if anything. He knew the trial of Jesus was progressing in a way that was unfair, and forces that were calling for Jesus' death were wrong, and that there was politics involved. So Pilate is not confused about the truth. He knows the truth, at least when it comes to the innocence of Jesus. John 18:38-40. After he had said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews? They cried out again, not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. Pilate realized that Jesus is no revolutionary. He is not a danger to Rome, but he has committed no crimes against Rome. In the hopes that he can persuade the people, he offers a choice to release whoever they want. Now, the Greek word that describes Barabbas is robber, or also brigand. That means part of a gang that robs people as they're walking on the road. Or it can even mean an insurrectionist. Now, Matthew gives us the other information that we do not know from John, that Barabbas was a well-known criminal. So Pilate offered a choice. Jesus, the innocent man whom they accused of being an insurrectionist, or Barabbas, an actual insurrectionist. They chose to release the actual insurrectionist. Leon Morris, one of my favorite commentators of John, says that the reason that they chose Barabbas is because, not because of the hatred of Jesus, which is what I'm of the opinion of, but because Barabbas was actually a local hero. He was a folk hero because he was standing up against the Romans. And that could actually be true, that they actually preferred Barabbas because they saw their salvation as overcoming those bad, nasty Romans. That could be, or not. We don't know exactly the motivation of why they chose Barabbas. But one thing we do know, that they released a guilty man, and they called for the punishment of an innocent man. That is one of those themes that is repeated again and again in the Gospel of John.